My name is Fatima, and I was born in a small village high in the mountains of Afghanistan. Our home was nothing more than mud walls and a leaking roof that let in snow during the harsh winters. My father died when I was only 8 years old, leaving my mother to care for me and my 3 younger brothers alone. Life was extremely difficult for women in our village. We could not go to school, work, or even leave our homes without permission from men. When I was 12, my mother became very sick. Without money for medicine or a doctor, I watched her grow weaker each day. I felt angry at God, angry at the world, and angry at being born a girl in a place where girls were treated worse than animals. The seeds of bitterness and rage were planted deep in my heart during those long, cold nights when I listened to my mother cough and knew there was nothing I could do to help her. After my mother died, my brothers and I were left completely alone. The village elders wanted to separate us and give us to different families as servants. I was terrified of being sent away from my brothers, who were the only family I had left. That is when the women fighters came to our village. They wore black robes and carried weapons, but they spoke to me with kindness that I had never experienced before. These women told me stories of power and purpose. They explained that women could fight for justice and protect their families if they joined their cause. They promised that I would never again be helpless or worthless. They offered food, shelter, and training. Most importantly, they promised that my brothers would be cared for if I served their mission. To a 15-year-old girl who had lost everything, their words sounded like hope. I did not understand then that they were Taliban recruiters specifically looking for desperate young women like me. They knew exactly what to say to broken hearts. They offered me identity, belonging, and strength in a world that had given me nothing but pain. When they asked me to come with them, I saw it as my only chance to survive and protect my brothers. I said yes without knowing that I was walking into a darkness deeper than anything I had experienced before. The training camp was hidden deep in mountain caves where no government soldiers could find us. The moment I arrived, they took away my old clothes and gave me the black uniform that would become my identity for the next several years. They cut my hair short and told me to forget the weak girl I used to be. They said I was being reborn as a warrior for their cause. The physical training was brutal. We woke up before sunrise to run through rocky mountain paths until our lungs burned and our legs shook. We learned to handle weapons, to move silently, and to follow orders without question. They taught us that mercy was weakness and that hesitation would get us killed. Day after day, they filled our minds with stories of enemies who wanted to destroy our faith and our people. But the mental training was even worse than the physical pain. They showed us pictures and videos designed to make us angry and afraid. They told us that we were chosen by God to fight against evil, and that anyone who opposed us was an enemy of truth. They taught us to hate people we had never met and to see violence as the only solution to the world's problems. Slowly, the frightened girl who had lost her parents was replaced by someone harder, colder, and filled with rage. For 5 years, I lived as a Taliban fighter. I carried weapons, participated in raids, and followed orders that I now wish I could forget. The leaders told us we were serving God, but the more I saw, the more something felt wrong in my heart. I watched innocent people suffer because of our actions. I saw children crying for their parents, and I remembered being that same crying child when my mother died. The commanders lived in comfort while the rest of us slept on cold ground and ate scraps. They preached about sacrifice but never seemed to sacrifice anything themselves. They told us that women were precious and needed protection, but they treated the women fighters like disposable tools. We were useful only as long as we could kill and destroy for their cause. I began to notice that the peace and justice they promised never came. Instead, everywhere we went, there was more fear, more pain, and more suffering. Villages that had been quiet became filled with terror. Families were torn apart, and children lost their parents just as I had lost mine. Deep in my heart, a small voice began to whisper that this was not what God wanted. But I pushed those thoughts away because they felt dangerous and forbidden. The mission that changed my life forever took place in a small village similar to the one where I grew up. We had been sent to capture some people the leaders called enemies, but when we arrived, I saw mostly families with small children. Something inside me broke when I watched a little girl, maybe 7 years old, hiding behind her mother with the same terrified look I remembered having as a child. During the chaos that followed, I was separated from my group and trapped in a bombed building. A piece of concrete fell on my leg and I could not move. I was bleeding badly and knew I might die alone in that dark place. As I lay there in pain, all the promises my leaders had made seemed empty and meaningless. Where was the glory they had talked about? Where was the peace they said would come from our fighting? For the first time in years, I prayed not the memorized words they had taught us, but real words from my heart. I cried out to God and told Him I was tired of living in darkness and causing pain. I asked Him to show me if there was another way to live, a way filled with real peace instead of violence. I begged Him to forgive me for all the terrible things I had done and to help me find truth. Then something amazing happened that I still cannot fully explain. The dark room began to fill with the most beautiful, warm light I had ever seen. In that light, I saw a figure dressed in bright white clothes. His face was kind and full of love, not the angry face I expected God to have. He did not speak with his mouth, but somehow I heard his voice clearly in my heart. He revealed to me that he was Jesus, the Son of God, and that he had been waiting for me to call out to him. He told me that he loved me and had always loved me, even when I was fighting and doing terrible things. He let me know that he wanted to give me a new life, a life of peace instead of war, love instead of hate. He showed me that real strength comes from serving others, not from hurting them. When the light faded, I felt completely different inside. The anger that had burned in my heart for so many years was gone, replaced by a peace I had never known before. Somehow, even though my leg was badly injured, I found the strength to crawl out of that building and escape from the area. I knew I could never go back to the Taliban. I had to find a new way to live. Leaving was extremely dangerous. The Taliban kills anyone who tries to abandon their cause. I had to hide and move carefully from village to village, staying with people who were willing to risk their lives to help me. Many times I was almost caught, but it seemed like God was protecting me and showing me safe paths through the mountains. I eventually found a small group of Christians who met secretly in homes to worship Jesus. When I told them my story, they cried and hugged me, calling me their sister, treated my wounds and feed me. They did not judge me for my past or treat me like I was too bad to be forgiven. As months passed by, they taught me how to pray, how to read the Bible, and how to understand what it means to follow Jesus. For the first time since my mother died, I felt like I belonged to a real family, the love without expecting anything in return. Even though Jesus had forgiven me, learning to forgive myself was much harder. Every night, I remembered the faces of people who had been hurt because of things I did as a Taliban fighter. I felt guilty and wondered if someone like me deserved to be called a Christian. Sometimes I cried myself to sleep, thinking about all the pain I had caused. My new Christian brothers and sisters helped me understand that God's forgiveness is bigger than any sin we can commit. Slowly, I began to believe that the old Fatima who had been filled with hate and violence was truly dead, and that I was now a new person in Jesus. I learned that the guilt I felt was natural, but that I did not have to carry it forever. Once I understood how much Jesus loved me, I felt like I had to tell other people about him. I knew there were many women in Afghanistan who felt hopeless and angry, just like I had been. I wanted them to know that there was another way to live, a way that brought real peace and joy instead of more pain and destruction. I began sharing my testimony secretly with other Muslim women, telling them how Jesus had appeared to me and changed my heart. Many of them were shocked and some became angry, but others listened with tears in their eyes. I told them that Jesus loved them and wanted to give them new life. Some of them asked me to pray with them. There was one young woman named Aisha who reminded me of myself when I was younger. She had lost her family and was full of rage against the world. After hearing my story, she wanted to know if Jesus could really forgive her and give her peace. I gladly prayed with knowing what God has given me is available for everyone that surrendered to Jesus. Life as a Christian in Afghanistan is very dangerous. We have to meet secretly and be very careful about who we trust. If the Taliban discovered that I had left them and become a Christian, they would kill me immediately. But even though I live in hiding, I have more joy now than I ever had when I was free to walk around openly as a Muslim. Jesus has given me a peace that does not depend on my circumstances. I now spend my time helping other women who are suffering, bringing them food when I can, and always looking for opportunities to tell them about Jesus. Every day is a gift, and every person I meet is someone that God might want me to share His love with. To my brothers and sisters who follow Jesus, I want to encourage you to never take your faith for granted. You may not have come from the same dark background that I did, but Jesus has saved all of us from sin and death. We are all His children, and we all have the same responsibility to love each other and share His good news with the world. Please remember to pray for people like me who live in countries where Christians are persecuted. Your prayers give us strength and courage to continue following Jesus even when it is dangerous. Also pray for the Muslims in your own communities. Many of them are searching for truth and peace just like I was. They need to hear about Jesus' love from people who care about them. Keep following Jesus with all your heart, and trust Him with your whole life. He has good plans for you, and His love will never fail you.